There you go. You're unmuted.
Small children supplier. How was that? Was it?
Or knee deep in it.
Oh,
They were sure it was gonna roll back to 1900.
I think it's.
Don't know if I'm blind and can't see this, the little hand on this clock over here.
I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Benzie County Board of Commissioners. Today is October 10th, 2023. We're in the Frank Walter House Boardroom. Roll call, please.
Cunningham is excused. Janat,
Here.
Markey,
Here.
Nye. Present. Roloffs.
Here.
Sauer is excused. For second.
Here. Please stand for the invocation and the pledge of allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Benzie County. I ask for your guidance with the decisions we will make today. Please keep all of our public safety personnel safe and free from harm. I ask this in the name of your son. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Couple items for the agenda. One is to remove
Which one?
AJ's.
No, we're amending the agenda to add animal control water sewer connection project back on for reconsideration.
That can be an action item.
Yes, please.
Under item L,
And then the only thing we will be removing is Corey Carlin reached out and he would like to push the discussion regarding the DTRF loan until later this month. And so he will be present later this month. He just emailed me and let me know that.
So we're eliminating K.
Yes.
there's no more changes.
Janat moves to approve the agenda as amended. I'll second.
Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? So move. Have the minutes from September 26th.
Commissioner Janat had contacted me under the county administrator. There had been an extra C in the MAC and I have removed that, so it says MAC.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the minutes. Janat supports.
There's a motion and support. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? So move. Brings us to our first public input. Is there anybody that'd like to? Ms. Mallon?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Karen Mallon. I'm a Benzie County employee. I work for the prosecuting attorney's office. And I attended the MERS conference as an employee delegate. So I want to say thank you very much for allowing me to go. It was an awesome conference. I had a great time. Excuse me. I just wrote something down because I don't want to forget what I want to say, but so the idea of investing can be daunting to many young people in our county employs so many young people. And the benefits far outweigh the risks. Excuse me, with MERS, the financial advisors and the educational programs that they offer are tremendous. And I'm just coming to ask today that maybe the county would see fit that would allow me maybe to talk to the Human Resource Committee or something just about what I learned through the MERS conference and maybe start a program for our county employees that would encourage them to invest in their future. I think it would make the county a stronger employer to require some of these programs. Not so much that they have to invest the money, but they would have to participate in the educational programs. I think that being young and investing in your future is the way to go. I wish I would have known more when I was young and didn't, but I'm thinking that our young people that are employed now could really benefit from it, and it would be just a great, I don't want to say bargaining tool, but maybe a bargaining tool, something to get future employees to come to the county. So thanks again. I really had a great time.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Any other public input? All right, close public input and move on to finance. Looking for improvement of $119,573.25.
I'll make that motion.
9 seconds.
Roll call, please.
If I could, before we get into
You may.
that, first, are we approving both of these reports at the same time?
No,
Prior year was 2024.
Okay, and I just need to check my notes real quick and then
the 119 is for last fiscal year, and then for this upcoming is the larger number.
got it. Thank you.
All righty. Roll call, please.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
motion carries.
All righty. Brings us to election officials department.
There's a
And one more
second set of
for December.
finance to approve for this fiscal year. And so that next one is $317,540.10.
see.
And that's to approve the expenditures at the start of the fiscal.
It's on.
I would make that motion. Approve the $317,540.10.
United supports.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
motion carried.
You. Now we'll move on to elected officials and department heads. Nobody?
I agree.
Goodness. First action item, accept the 2023 apportionment report.
I've asked Brianne Lindsay to be here today to talk about the apportionment report because her office prepares this report for the Board of Commissioners. And so she'll go over a bit of how this report comes together and what that means for Benzie County.
Good morning. So today I have prepared the apportionment report for 2023. This report shows the taxable value of all the properties within our jurisdictions and then applies the millage rates which were submitted, generate an estimated taxable value, or I guess taxable dollars that will be generated. So that'll be broken down by jurisdiction, also authorities and school systems.
Brianna, because this is your first time through.
Yeah.
And for my benefit also, I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions, okay? First, I remember, if I remember right, the state has a target that you're trying to hit. A
Uh,
percentage or,
So are you talking about equalization?
yes,
So 50% of the value, 50%, right?
and I know this isn't probably the right word to use, but how much manipulation does there take to get there?
We do have to have adjustments. This would be kind of towards the end of the year, where classes will come in below 50% and we have to kind of ask them to increase a bit, but usually it's maybe 5, sometimes 8%.
And in the townships and cities assessors, what kind of role do they play in this?
So they're the ones that will initially set the role. They're going to submit those reports to us and initially give a value for the different classes. Of them to review to bump them up to the 50%.
And if you don't mind, a couple more questions.
Yeah.
The on the personal property tax.
Yep.
No, I think there's an exemption that's north of 100,000 now. Is that right?
I believe it is between that and 180.
Yeah, okay. So the numbers that we're looking at, are those only the ones that the government's eligible to collect taxes on, or do you include all personal property and then assess it differently based on individual taxpayers?
So those would be after the exemptions were applied as far as taxable value goes.
Okay. And was this your first time that you did it solo?
Yes.
Did you run into any concerns or things that just didn't feel right to you that you needed
I
help with?
was able to reach out to many equalization directors. And so just becoming more familiar with the reports, I did find out now kind of what the reports we had prepared and submitted earlier this year, how they tie into this report. So kind of getting a bigger picture. So this is kind of the end result of that.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2023 apportionment report. as
Mark, you will
presented.
support.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, item B is establish ad hoc interview committee for Veterans Affairs.
We did prepare two motions for you to consider taking action on. The Veterans Affairs Committee has one person's term who's expiring, Lawrence Camp Bailey. We have advertised for this position for quite some time and we have received no additional applications. Because of that, your policy does allow you to forego the ad hoc committee and just reappoint Mr. Camp if you would like to. Or we could do additional recruitment efforts and also establish an ad hoc interview committee, but that's up to you. But we have advertised for this on our website and in the newspaper, and we haven't received any additional applications. However, Mr. Camp absolutely would like to be reappointed.
Bob, how long has he been on that committee?
How long have I?
Camp,
Oh, maybe 10 years.
10 years. And I see that you've already signed off on it.
Absolutely.
I don't see any reason why we need to do
And
it.
I've expressed the importance of having Mr. Bailey with his knowledge and his background and what he brings to the community. The very well decorated veteran, Vietnam era. And he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to Veterans Affairs.
And he's not disruptive during meetings and,
No, he is not.
okay,
Bob,
the other will be for another day, okay? So just to kind of keep things moving along.
Yeah.
I'm going to move that the Board of Commissioners appoint Lawrence Bailey to the Veterans Affairs Committee with the term expiring 12/31/27. Markey will support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Roloff.
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. Item C, approve the social security policy.
Before we do that.
Yeah.
Okay, just to, for the record, it says, all these policies, it says legal counsel is currently reviewing. Is it, am I understanding though, that they have already reviewed them now?
They reviewed them, they did send them back and there weren't changes to them. So they signed off on them.
Okay.
now. Mhm. All of them.
And that's for all, okay, thank you.
So these personnel policies, they're to add to the list of personnel policies we have been approving. I'm sorry. So the social security policy is in there. You can see the new policy as well as the old policy that was in place in the manual. This policy is just one of those protection policies for Benzie County as an employer.
So I make a motion that the Board of Commissioners adopts the social security policy to replace the old policy listed in the staff policy manual.
Man.
You're not sports.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
motion carried.
We're on to the improving the investment policy.
In your packet is the investment policy. This is an operational policy for Benzie County. We have had an investment policy in place for years. This policy simply is reformatting and revamping that existing policy. It really is essentially the same policy as before with minor tweaks to it. This basically outlines our investments as a county for our funding. And it kind of sets that roadmap for the treasurer's office as to investments for the county.
And a lot of this is guided by statute anyway, right?
Correct. Yep. There's not a lot of wiggle room in what we can and can't do. So yes, we invest according to various statutes.
And depending on the agency we're working with, they stay in compliance. An
Mhm.
example would be, I know we use multiple investment sources. I think one of the bigger ones is Michigan Class.
Correct. Yep.
Everybody's in compliance.
Yes.
That said, I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt the investment policy to replace the old policy listed in the operational policy manual.
Second.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes,
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item E. Dress and hygiene policy.
This policy, again, is a personnel policy that we're going to add to the new manual. We lightly addressed dress and hygiene in the old personnel policy manual. This one goes into a bit more detail. This policy really sets the standard for our employees and representing Benzie County when they're working for Benzie County. This isn't saying that you have to dress a certain way. You have to go and buy the most expensive clothes by any means, but it's really just encouraging employees to put their best foot forward when they come to Benzie County so that they're representing us in a good manner. It also talks about wearing jeans. The policy in there does specifically say Jean Friday. However, I would like you to adopt a motion as amended because I would like to simply have Jean Day, because there is sometimes if the governmental is closed on a Friday, we'll wear jeans on a Thursday. So it allows those departments to do that. Elected officials don't have to obviously enforce that part of the policy if they don't want to. Some don't. But we try to, create a culture of fun and inviting, and Friday Jean Day, or the last day of the week, Jean Day, is a pretty common fun approach.
so under section 6, Blue Jean Friday, specifically, can you show us where you want that language changed?
So it would just Blue Jean Day. And so we would replace Friday with day. Mhm.
It's been my experience that this is one of the most difficult policies to enforce because it's so sensitive,
Yes.
particularly if you have a high performing employee, but they don't meet this criteria. One of the experiences I've had over time is people that have dental issues. Is there anywhere in here that you want to stress that dental insurance is available?
All of our employees take dental insurance, unless obviously they have another insurance that would allow them to be exempt from that. So we would encourage folks to utilize that insurance that we do provide to them at no cost. So that's one of the benefits of Benzie County is we provide those benefits to our staff. So it really gets rid of that any sort of income barrier that maybe other organizations may face when it comes to different insurances, because we knock that barrier right out and give those services give those benefits to our staff.
I'll make the motion. The Board of Commissioners adopts the dress and hygiene policy as amended to replace the old policy listed in the staff policy manual.
Mhm.
Second.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Janai,
Yes,
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item F. Approve the credit card policy.
So this is more of an operational policy. Benzie County, as staff, we have credit cards that we utilize when we go to conferences and trainings and such. Sometimes we use them to pay various bills for the county versus just paying by check. We're moving into the new age, I guess you could say, where more and more organizations are asking for credit cards or ACH payments versus check payments. So we are utilizing those credit cards more and more. These credit cards we've had for years. Benzie County's had credit cards for many years. This policy sets the tone as to what you can and cannot do with that credit card. So it's, covering us as the county. We're setting that standard for those employees. We're setting them up for success. So there's no question as to what, they can do with that credit card. The credit cards have a $2,000 limit. However, in looking in this, there are a couple of credit cards who have a different limit for some odd reason. So we're going to address that, and everybody will have that equal limit versus a few people having less, which made no sense.
Let's talk about that just for a minute, okay?
Hmm.
There's couple questions I want to ask. First, are all the credit cards issued in the county's name, or are any of them issued individually? How are they issued?
So we have 2 credit cards. 14 of them are issued to Benzie County, and then there's authorized users. So the department heads, myself, as well as the undersheriff. And then there are 7 cards who are issued to the sheriff's office, and those are issued. Some of them are issued in a name, but others are not because they're a shared card. So if somebody goes to a training like a corrections officer or somebody, they can take that Benzie sheriff card. So not all of those are in an actual person's name, like the ones down here. And if you look at the card, they say County of Benzie, and then it says like half of my name.
Does that cause any administrative issues because you've got a couple of different providers out there?
A little bit, because we're now paying the credit cards via ACH. You may recall in years past, before I got here, we were paying the credit cards by check, and we were actually suffering a lot of late fees. And so what we did is we made that move it's been almost a year now. We made that move to go ACH so that we don't have late fees anymore. But we have 2 sets of credit card bills to pay and make those ACH transactions, which are a little more cumbersome than just writing a check, because there's an extra step on the treasurer's office to initiate that transfer. And then my office has to go in and make that transfer. So it's initiation and then making the transfer. So it does kind of cause, extra work. I would have liked to eventually go to just one Benzie County card and add those additional authorized users of the sheriff's office onto the one card. So then we just have one bill for Benzie County and one card.
And you're going to try to work towards that, is that right?
Yep. And actually, he didn't seem like there was any issue with that.
And the other has to do with the spending limits.
Mhm.
I understand about the equality of it, but the reality of it is that someone in this group of people either need a lesser or higher limit than somebody else. And I'm going to use your position as in my example. I'm left with the impression that you frequently are the ones booking rooms
Yes.
and paying for dues and fees for conferences, et cetera.
Yes.
Do you ever have a point where $2,000 isn't adequate?
Quite often, actually. My office, not only do we book trainings for myself, for Jackie and for Rose, I also book your trainings most of the times. And so, yes, $2,000 doesn't always work out. And so I'll have to run down the hallway and use Shelley's card to book. So like recently for the MAC conference, I used Shelley's card to book Karen Cunningham's because there wasn't enough on my credit card because I had booked Aaron Mallon and myself for MERS as well as myself for MAC. So then I used Shelley's or Karen's for MAC. So $2,000 isn't enough many times, yes.
Is there anybody else on this list that may be under similar circumstances?
I haven't heard anybody else having that issue, no. Most people are only using the card for themselves or maybe 1 or 2 staffs, but because I'm in charge of all of your guys's bookings as well, that creates problems.
And I realize that establishing a $2,000 limit limits our exposure. I get that. But I'm going to tell you, if I can't trust you with, as an example, 5,000, I can't trust you with 2,000.
Right.
All
And
right.
I think the $2,000 was established because your previous purchasing policy, before we adopted that new one about a year ago, only allowed a $2,000 limit, and then everything had to come to the Board of Commissioners. The new policy allows a $3,000 limit for department heads and a $5,000 limit for myself, before it absolutely comes to the Board of Commissioners. And so you see a lot, oftentimes in other communities, they essentially use those spending limit thresholds to set the limits for the credit cards. And that's exactly what you guys did in Benzie County. And that's why you arrived at that $2,000, is because that was your spending authority before it had to come to the board.
So I've shared, my observations. I'd be curious to know how other commissioners feel about this.
Wouldn't it make sense to set the spending limit to what the spending limit is?
It would make sense, yes. I wouldn't go
We
any
work that
higher.
way?
I wouldn't go any higher because then you're, potentially setting your staff people up for failure in a sense, because you're allowing them to spend more than they're authorized to spend based on policy.
Can we acknowledge that the administration office has more responsibility in making charges and set two limits?
If you'd like to.
Well, I would offer we continue to look at this
Yeah,
till the next meeting and maybe draft it so it, is common sense.
Yeah.
And meets our needs.
sure.
Draft it to word it to where it's equivalent to what our spending limits is on the budget.
Right.
Yeah, and policy.
And if you've talked to the sheriff and a change needs to be made to incorporate one account for credit card use,
Mhm.
maybe that could be, referenced in the policy as well.
Yeah,
So you have a point to refer to down the road if it's ever questioned why another account can't be opened.
yeah,
Just, it seems like the appropriate time to address
okay.
me.
And I know in various conversations over the last almost 3 years of my time here, I guess it has been 3 years. I've talked with Shelley and Kelly, and they've expressed frustrations with the credit card company that we do utilize. They've also half mentioned a time or two, maybe we switch companies. So maybe this is the time we explore that and just kind of take care of everything at one time. That might be the way to do it. I'd still like to adopt the policy because exploring a new credit card company and getting new cards could take 60, 90 days. So I'd like to at least adopt this policy so that we're keeping what we're doing, so the policy is in place, and then bring back forward a amended policy when we are able to obtain those additional authorized users and credit limits. Would that be okay?
Katie, what I guess I'd like to see happen, and Rhonda just touched on it, is there's some fundamentals in here that we would like to address.
Yes.
One is making sure that the county's using a common card
Mhm.
and provider, because if you do some research, you're going to find there's a lot of great incentives out there these days. And I imagine we probably have a pretty good bill that runs through. And the other would be, as Tim had said, is kind of identify what levels people should have.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if it wouldn't be appropriate just to table this until those two things are answered. And then at a future meeting, we can approve the amended based on our discussion.
Yeah.
And then if you want to bring back yet a different policy because it reflects the change of a provider, did that work for you?
Well, my only concern is the credit card use policy we have in place now. It's not as encompassing as this policy. And we have credit cards in place that we are utilizing with the set amounts of credit limit. I'd like to at least cover us until we get to that new way. Otherwise, we're basically operating under a credit card use policy that's not as all-inclusive in covering the credit cards. That's
How-
my only things. We already have the credit cards. I want a policy in place that is reflective of those credit cards so that we're not left with nothing in the meantime.
And I respect that, but how long have we been under the current policy?
I think you guys have had those credit cards more than a decade, maybe?
So another 60 days probably wouldn't matter.
That's fine.
I'd make a motion that we table this until a future meeting when the changes we've suggested are implemented
Okay.
or documented.
I'll support.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion?
Brenda, you look like you got
I'm
something.
just concerned. Our administrator has told us there is a gap being left and we're not building to her recommendation, and I don't think she would make it if she didn't have a reason to strongly urge that this be done today. And I don't think there's any harm done in implementing a policy that's more that has more coverage on a situation and then amending it at a later date. We've identified changes that we want. And I just, I'm
And-
struggling with not yielding to her suggestion.
And I'm not saying we have bad apples. All of our staff is very good about the credit card use and respectful. But it only takes one, takes one apple to ruin the peck or whatever they say. And I don't see the harm in adopting this policy just to change it in 60 days because we've made drastic changes. I would prefer from a comfort level and a liability level to adopt a policy that has additional restrictions or outlines on how the credit cards are to be used. Because you never know.
Okay, then I'll withdraw my support. Yeah, I agree with Rhonda.
And I'll still bring a new one back after Shelley and Kelly. We can sit down and we can talk about, maybe there is a new company that we utilize. We can bring on the share of 7 cards onto the one account. So there's just one credit card account. We will do that. And then we'll make those necessary changes to this policy and bring it back.
The only advantage that I see in delaying it is that it forces us to stay on our radar and it can't get lost anywhere.
Mhm.
I know it's on your task list, but it's not on our task list anymore. If we bring it back, and it can be done even in the next meeting, we're just talking about a few tweaks here.
Yeah.
But, if my motion dies for lack of support, so be it.
Or any other support? Motion dies on the table.
I'm going to make the motion that the Board of Commissioners adopts a credit card policy to replace the old policy listed in the staff policy manual.
You could add to your motion and that it,
With
an
the
amended
intention.
policy be brought back in 90 days or whatever, if you'd like.
And
to.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to add that an amended policy be presented to the Board of in the next 90 days.
Second.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Guy,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Brings us to item G, approval of Cherry Capital Communications Agreement for fiber extension to the communication tower.
So we've talked about the communications tower a lot over the years and a lot more recently because we were awarded funding from the state as well as some of our neighboring townships. In order to make that tower function, we have to have fiber internet running to the tower. You as a board approve the overall project to run the fiber as well as construct the tower over at the city of Frankfurt limits there. What this agreement is today is this is an agreement specifically with Cherry Capital Communications for that stretch of fiber that's going to run from the intersection up here where our lovely stoplight is down to the fiber or down to the tower. So this is an agreement. It's almost the same as the agreement you adopted with Cherry Capital Communications for the overall Internet for All project. This one is specific to that tower because this is a different funding structure than the other project that we're working on. Tim is here with any questions you may have as far as timing, how many feet it is or what have you. But this agreement is between the two of us to run that fiber from the intersection down to the tower so that the tower is on fiber internet.
Tim, I have a question for you, but it has less to do with the contract. So tell me, I understand what the benefit's going to be for the tower. Can you help me better understand what the benefit will be for that community?
So Crystal Lake and down to the city.
Yeah, so what this does is it extends the middle mile infrastructure into Frankfurt, which it stops short of that. And does allow us to extend it laterally out to the homes that are unserved or underserved. And it moves it up the schedule. That length of M15 has very few homes on it. In fact, there's less than 100 businesses along that route. So it's an expensive route with no return potential until you get to the laterals. So what this does, because the need to have fiber at that tower location, we don't want that to be the roadblock in getting that tower built. We're putting it on this year's schedule. Negotiate with the contract. Extra cost and doing it at the end of the season. And so there was a lot of benefit to it.
And the geography that we're talking about, was that part of your initial bid to extend broadband to Benzie County? Or
There's an additional segment that
This is
is
addition.
included that was not the Robin route that were there.
Can I
Okay.
ask that a different way?
please,
So the commitment that we made as a board of $1 million for the broadband effort, actually more than that.
Yes.
1.5.
Right. You allocated a number of homes that would be reached.
Right.
Has that number changed based on taking on this project as well? Is that number of homes, because you're going down a stretch now that doesn't have
Yeah, there
the deliverables
Yes.
changed in the original contract?
Yes. I don't have that number in front of me, but since we're going into downtown Frankfurt, or not downtown, but to the edge of Frankfurt, there would be homes and businesses that were not included in the Internet for All or the Robin application.
So there would be more homes served.
More homes
Correct.
served.
It's not detracting from the original
No.
commitment to the number of homes.
This is a separate project essentially, because, the Robin funding and the funding that we gave to Tim, some of that funding is under a different set of standards than what this funding will be. So yes, it's additional. It's not taking away from the original project.
And the total project for that M115, we had PFN quote it for us so that we could check our quote. We were close to 700,000 for that bill. PFN was around 861,000. And what we've come to the county for is the 351,000. It's a matter of using a collective of a lot of different funds to get it accomplished.
And I'm sure I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. This is,
Sure.
you're taking on a lot with the Internet for All and the Tower project.
Yep.
Your staffing capabilities are intact to
Yes.
handle all these projects?
Yeah, we have Team Thick Underground has stepped in on some of our existing projects, free up our staff. We have Fiber North out of Rapid City is under an agreement with us. And our new engineering firm did a great job of the Prince. They also have a construction firm, and we're in the process of negotiating in one area to get them on board. So we've hired 3 new people this year on our own staff. We're still short a little bit, but with the contract, we're able to get the pipe in the ground, but on schedule.
So this is gonna pull fiber from Benzonia basically all the way over to Frankfurt,
Yes,
edge of Frankfurt. So there's no fiber in Frankfurt today?
there may be charter fiber
Okay.
may be there,
So there's no backbone or middle mile.
but not for middle mile, right?
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Jeanette will make the motion that the board approves the fiber optic broadband network construction agreement, in support of the public safety tower with Cherry Capital Connection, and authorizes the chair to sign.
Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes,
motion carried.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Tim.
Tim. Item H, approval of the 2023 Emergency Management Performance Grant Agreement and all related budget amendment.
Not too long ago, the Board of Commissioners authorized the chair and the emergency management coordinator to sign her grant application to submit for reimbursement funding to go towards her salary. We have been awarded that grant as well as some additional funding that the state has tacked on top to give us. So what we had approved originally is $8,796 less than what we actually are receiving for Rebecca's position. And so what I'm looking for you today is to approve that agreement for signature and also authorize the budget amendment to recognize that additional revenue of just short of $8,800. And this specifically benefits emergency management in Benzie County.
I'll make the motion. The Board of Commissioners approve the 2023 EMPG grant agreement with the Michigan State Police, Emergency Management and Homeland Security Division, and authorizes the chair, the Emergency Management Coordinator to sign, and further authorize the related budget amendment to recognize an additional $8,796 in revenue and expenditures related to the grant award.
I'll second. Second.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Donnie,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item I, consider amending the employee roster to add a paramedic position and remove an EMT position to include the necessary budget adjustments.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
This is more of just a transparency issue. Currently, we have an EMT position vacant due to a resignation. Their last day was this past Saturday. And we have been getting applications for a paramedic position, which looking at the longevity of the EMS department is more beneficial in my personal opinion. And we have an internal applicant that has already applied for a part-time internal applicant. We also received another paramedic position. I've received 2 part-time EMT positions, but nothing for full-time. And what I would like to have happen is a roster change to have the EMT move to a paramedic position on our roster rather than remaining as the EMT.
And that means as we look at the roster where it says it has 2 line items vacant for that part-time paramedic, those would be removed and it would be 1 full-time.
Well, what would happen is there is an EMT would be removed. So one of the 2 EMT positions would drop down to 1 full-time EMT position. So that would be removed. And a full-time paramedic position would be added.
But we would continue to show on our roster part-time paramedics.
Mhm.
Yes, because not all of them work every week or even 2 times a month due to the nature of their shifts being either 12 or 24 hours. Typically, you're not seeing someone pick up an extra 12 or 24 hours every pay period. So to carry part-time positions on the roster is generally very fluid. Sometimes we have employees work maybe 9 extra positions, or they'll go a whole month without working. So it's a little bit more fluid when it comes to part-time positions on the roster. Generally, we have pretty heavy ones to try to circumvent full-time employees getting overtime. Ideally, we like to have part-time people fill in the gaps. So that's why traditionally you have several part-time positions on a roster.
Let me ask the question a little differently.
Sure.
So will we continue then to try to recruit 2 part-time paramedic positions?
I mean, ideally, it'd be nice to get more part-time paramedics, but traditionally I haven't got a part-time paramedic position since like springtime. I've got 2 part-time EMTs, which they are lower paid and generally more of an entry level. Paramedics have to go through several. Do you want to come up here for just a second? Explain the difference. Several years of experience before they become a paramedic.
No, actually, the next question I have is really for Tim. Tim, you sit on that advisory committee?
I used to.
Who does now?
No.
Nobody.
Oh. We did away with it?
Yes.
Mhm. So having paramedics is much more beneficial in the services that we provide to our community. They can do more, as well as when it comes to paramedics and EMTs, typically you pair them up. You can't typically have 2 EMTs in a truck because then it's not advanced life support. That paramedic has to be there. So by hiring additional paramedics, we're enhancing the service to our community. This isn't adding a position, this is changing a position. Based on the vacancies that we've had and what we have budgeted, we can definitely meet the additional salary that it would take to make this a paramedic position. And we'd like to fill the vacancy. We've had these vacancies, which then causes more overtime and more part-time staff having to work. And so we'd like to fill the vacancy, and what we have in front of us available as paramedics not EMTs. We're not getting the EMT applications like we used to. It's a problem all over the country is what I'm learning. And that's why we're trying to enhance some training in Benzie County to bring up EMTs and paramedics in Benzie County. So this is addressing the problem that we have in front of us, but also making long-term enhancements to our community.
So the emergency medical service budget. Would it support the entire roster if it were filled?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not.
So I
looking
think
to, like,
that's the
add
concern.
Yeah. It's just a budget adjustment from the EMT line item to the ALS line item.
Sure.
Mhm.
Gets us
So this-
more
yeah.
Qualified professionals.
Correct. So the
Correct.
special millage that we have in place for EMS for the operations that we currently have, it definitely covers it. We always have a little extra at the end of the fiscal year, sometimes more than than others, just based on staffing and, you know, accidents with a truck and things like that. So this definitely can support this position long term. If we want to change operations completely and add an additional, you know, full-time truck and those sorts of things, those big changes are going to take major changes to the budget. For something like this, completely fine.
So let me ask this, Tom, if an ambulance arrives at my house and there's a paramedic on there, that's the highest level of service that I'm going to receive in Benzie County when an ambulance pulls into my driveway.
Right.
Yeah, no, my questions have been answered. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Not that I want that to happen.
Yeah, no.
That's the second time this morning you've had to clarify for me. What am I
We
doing
want the
here?
service. We don't want to have the service.
right.
Yeah,
Want to provide it, not use it.
correct. So there is a motion in your packet that is recommended.
I will make that motion that the Board of Commissioners approves the roster change from a full-time emergency medical technician to a full-time paramedic position and the budget adjustment within the ambulance fund.
Jeanette Sports,
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Worsakki,
yes.
Knapp,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
All righty, we're gonna step back and go to our 9:30 representatives from the Northwest Food Coalition. If you'd like to come up.
Yeah. Go on. Do you want me to pass? it
Good
on?
morning.
Okay.
All right. Well, good morning and thank you for taking some time to hear a little bit more about the Northwest Food Coalition. My name is Kathy Rhodes. I am a volunteer with the coalition. And with me today is Christina Barkle, who is a food equity specialist with Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities, and Taylor Moore, who is the director of Food Rescue, which is a Goodwill of Northern Michigan program. I'm going to give you a brief overview, history of the coalition, and then Christina and Taylor will give you a little more detailed information and how Northwest Food Coalition is an important part of Benzie County services. Did you get a copy of the slides?
It would be in the packet.
Okay, so we're gonna try to follow that to give it a little better structure. The coalition was established in 1994. Val Stone was instrumental in getting that to form. It was formed as a way to help rural pantries better work together and share their resources. And Val retired this past April, and our new coordinator, Rachel Kugler, is with us today also. The mission statement for the Northwest Food Coalition is to empower member food programs by coordinating and creating resources to achieve regional food security. And we define food insecurity is a lack of consistent access to enough food for every person in a household to live an active, healthy life. The coalition serves 70 members right now, and those members are in Antrim County, Benzie, Leelanau, Kalkaska, Grand Traverse County, and in Wexford. Coalition members are food pantries, community meal sites, and baby pantries. And it's of note that a third of the individuals served by the coalition are under the age of 18. In our region, there are 16,000 people living under the poverty line. And in Benzie County, 1,700 are below the poverty line. 36% of the household meet the ALICE requirement for poverty. If you're familiar with the United Way studies, that asset limited, income constrained, employed. So these are people who are employed but are still having trouble making ends meet. In Benzie County, we have the Benzie Area Christian Neighbors, which has been one of the founding organizations in the coalition. There's also Benzie Friends Resource Center, Benzie Food Partners, Fresh Wind Food Pantry, the Grand Traverse Band and Ottawa and Chippewa Indians are also a member of the coalition, as well as the Lake Ann United Methodist Church and the Woodside Wesleyan Church all have pantries that are members of the coalition. The baby pantry at St. Philip's Episcopal Church is not a member of the coalition at this time, but they do use services provided by Food Rescue. The coalition has a very dedicated leadership, and they operate the operating committee, and they work to find new resources through grants, donations, and some policy work. And both Christina and Taylor and Rachel and Rachel as well are all on that operating committee. And they will explain a lot more about what they do. Finally, from me, besides Food Rescue and groundwork, we also have partners, including Munson Medical Center, MSU Extension. They provide recipes and nutrition education. Rotary Charities is a strong supporter of the coalition. And then the Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency, who's also Rachel's employer. They all help support, make the coalition work. So with that, I'm gonna turn that over.
Yeah. Next, everyone, my name's Taylor Moore. I've been with Food Rescue for 8 years now, and Kyle, Sheriff Rosa, nice to see you. Sheriff Rosa would pick up at our warehouse during the pandemic, and him and his wife, Amy, were really, really helpful. At that time, we're now making deliveries into Lake Ann twice a week versus having them come into our warehouse. So an expansion of services. And also Caitlin Lawrence, nice to see you. MSU Extension SNAP educator who works with us. So we're presenting in part because whenever I present, I'm talking about the Food Coalition. I'm talking about groundwork. There's so many people involved. So this is our first time presenting together into a body like this. So it's exciting milestone, I think. So Food Rescue, our mission is to make sure that good food does not go to waste. So we want to increase access to healthy food and make sure food doesn't end up in the landfill. There's two really important reasons for this. One, the environmental impact of food just rotting in a landfill is a problem for our environment. And two, we have people in need. So good food should not be going to waste. And our mission is of a community where everyone has access to healthy food that they need. And in that community, in that future, we won't be wasting food. So every day we rescue about 7,000 pounds of food. That's 1,000 loaves of bread that we pick up every day, 450 pounds of meat, just about 3,000 pounds of produce every day. So that's Costco, Sam's Club, all the Toms, all the Olsen stores. And we started this work in 2008, October 8th. This is actually our 15-year anniversary. We celebrated on Sunday. We've rescued 20 million pounds of food in that time. We work with over 180 food donors every year, 75 farmers. We have 3 box trucks and 2 Sprinter vans. We have a warehouse on Arrow Park Drive in Traverse City. We also have a healthy harvest program, which is gleaning excess food at farms. So if there's apples left over in the orchard or sweet corn or green beans or asparagus, we go out and we get it. So I have a slide that's overlay of our weekly routes. So that's 2 to 3 routes per day. Mondays and Wednesdays are when we're in Benzie County. And our food accounts for 1/3 of all the food that'll get distributed out and throughout the Food Coalition members. So that's all the sites that Kathy mentioned and more. That's Father Fred, Salvation Army. I mean, you name it, we're going there. This past fiscal year, we distributed over 250,000 pounds of food into Benzie County. So I have this next slide, like the one bad apple that came up. But this is a bag of oranges. This is what rescued food looks like. If one thing is bad in the bag, it would get thrown out. Instead, we pick it up. We rescue a lot of imperfect foods. and supporting farms was going to be one of the best ways we can do that. And I'm going to hand it over to Christina to talk about the work with the farms as well as her work. Thanks. Oh, yeah, totally.
Good morning, everyone. So I am here as the food equity specialist at the Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities, which was formerly known as Michigan Land Use Institute, which was founded in Benzie County 25 years ago. Our mission is we work to protect the environment and strengthen economies and build thriving communities. And we have deep roots and expertise in food systems work. And so back in 2018, when the Northwest Food Coalition was interested in getting more healthy local produce available to people, to their member food pantries and meal sites, they approached Groundwork to say, hey, can you help us? Can we help leverage your relationships and knowledge of our food system to help build a local food purchasing program? This program is called Farm to Neighbor, and the coalition collectively raises money to actually purchase fresh produce and protein and other products from farmers. So the idea is that, farmers and food producers in our region have been so generous in donating food to food pantries for years. Now the coalition raises money so that they can purchase that food at a fair price so that there's a local investment in our economy and they are increasing the amount of healthy food that's available in their pantries. So my role in this is I help facilitate the decision-making. The coalition raises money and then that is theirs to decide how they want to spend it. So do they want to get asparagus from Norconk Farm? At what price? Do they want to buy apples, peaches, carrots? My role is to help facilitate their purchasing committee so they can collectively make those decisions. I also do market research and build relationships with farmers so that I can know what's available at what point during the growing season, what's a fair price, what's going to work for the coalition, how can they most responsibly use their resources to purchase and distribute healthy food. The membership of the committee or of the coalition spans 6 counties with all kinds of situations, food pantries, baby pantries. Some are large, some are small, some are tribal pantries. And so we aim to maintain a purchasing committee that reflects the constituency of that group so that everybody's needs are represented in decision making. So what that means is we try to have a large pantry, we try to have a small one. The Grand Traverse Band participates, we have a baby pantry, we try to include people from each county in the coalition region so that all of the various interests and needs can be represented and discussed when we're talking about purchases. And we really like to make sure that we have good communication among all 3 of our partners. This slide here kind of shows the way that we get feedback from members about what we buy. This slide here just is a little representation of the kinds of discussions that happen at these meetings. So member pantries will tell us, oh, we need more carrots. We're running out of carrots at our pantry. And then I'll say, oh, I know that Providence Farm in Antrim County, we can buy a bin of carrots at a great price. Should we buy it? The coalition members would say, yeah, let's get it. And then I talk to Taylor and his crew and say, hey, can you run out and pick up a bin of carrots and repack it? So we try to meet once or twice a month during the growing season to have those decisions, make those decisions and communicate with each other. And like I said, this started back in 2018. The pandemic really accelerated our ability to provide local food. We saw how the national supply chains were faltering at that time. And our local farmers and community members really stepped up, both with financial resources so that we could purchase more food, but also the actual food farmers were growing. They were so appreciative that the coalition was able to buy it at a time when restaurants were shutting down, farmers markets were closing. So the economic impact there was tremendous. We have been very fortunate to be included in a USDA program called the Local Food Purchasing Assistance Program that they have awarded to state and tribal governments to fund this work. So it is direct money for direct food purchasing, and the Grand Traverse Band included us in their proposal. And so we have $550,000 to spend over the next 2 years on local food. So because of our work, we're seeing a great economic impact that is really making a real difference to our farm families, and they're growing their small businesses, as well as increasing the amount of healthy food in our food pantries. And then you can see how we've grown in this next slide back from 2018 to now. And I look forward to many more years of doing this work, of investing in our farms, helping people get healthy food. And Taylor, you want to conclude?
You make it sound so easy. I wanted to be explicit, food rescue, we aren't a food pantry. We don't serve people. We only deliver the food to food pantries and meal sites. So the nearly $150,000 worth of local produce that's been purchased by the Food Coalition, over 100,000 pounds of food. Food Rescue handles all the logistics of getting that food in. So on any given day, we're texting with farmers, and we'll bring that into the warehouse, we'll repack it, we'll inventory it, we'll distribute it, and then we'll report back. So we can report to each pantry at the pantry level what the amount of asparagus to the pound that they received. And these are new systems, new accountability, new transparency that we've never had before. And it's just, it's really fantastic. And the outcomes are in these percentage slides. In 2014, in that food security report that I referenced, that Chris Thomas and Benzie Sunrise Rotary helped fund, the pantries were asked, do you always have fresh produce available when you are open? And 13% said yes. That number is now 68%. And we want that number to be 100% of the time when a pantry opens their doors and are serving a family or serving a senior, that there's dignity, that there's produce, that they can know it came from Norconk or whatever farm. And that's the work that we're doing. We have doubled the amount of fruits, vegetables, meats, dairies, and grain in that time. And we're really looking forward to continuing our collaborative work to address food insecurity in the region. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very, very helpful. Any comment?
Well, because you're here, I'll ask you 3 questions, okay? And anybody can field this.
All right.
First, your funding sources.
Yes.
Are those coming from grants from the government or are these private?
So for food rescue, we rely on grants and individual contributions. We're also a program of Goodwill. So any shortfall will come from the Goodwill stores. But the Goodwill stores also fund housing and homeless services. Importantly, I guess we are receiving, it's about 5 cents per pound from the USDA grant. That's the first federal funding we've ever received. That's how it works for us.
Yeah, and for the coalition for direct food purchasing, it's also a mix of private contributions from individuals and grants and philanthropic efforts. My staff time is covered via grants to Groundwork, and yeah, the USDA grant that I referenced is the first time there have been federal funds to support this work of directly purchasing local food for food pantries.
Do you remember what the poverty line would be for like a family of 4?
Yeah, do you know that off the top of your head?
$6,000. But I don't, not 100%.
Because I've heard recently in some meetings that I've been in that these federal guidelines for poverty are well outdated, that they need to be reevaluated again. And also the people that take advantage of your services, do you qualify them or do you just take it on a faith basis?
I can answer that. So each pantry operates differently. And food rescue, we do not require any particular ways of means testing, if you will. So some pantries have guidelines that you must be a resident of the county. Or you must show proof of receiving food assistance. So it varies.
Can you please come up here? The people on YouTube can't hear you back there.
YouTubers.
Yes, the YouTubers.
They may also have guidelines on how many times a month a family can come in. They'll determine how big of a package of food you might receive based on the size of your household. And generally, the guidelines are based on that pantry's capacity to serve the people in their niche of the woods. So,
Thank you. That's all I have.
Anybody else? Thank
I offer to pass this out. This is Rotary Charities did a story about our work, and it's yeah, we really enjoyed it. If you want to read it, this also includes 2 other stories about ending childhood homelessness in Traverse City, and the other ones with the Shire and kind of determinants of health. You can grab it from me at the end of the, or I can leave it.
Got right there, signed, Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yep,
Yeah,
thanks.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're gonna take a brief break. We'll be back 20 after, or thereabouts.
Ironic. Let's
All right, you're unmuted.
We're back in session.
go, Marky.
When you're holding this up.
Item J. Consider approving MOU regarding the FAPE agreement with North Ed, Benzie Central Schools, Frankfurt, Alberta Schools, and Benzie County Sheriff's Department.
So I wrote a pretty lengthy memo in your packet that kind of talks about this program. So the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act that is set forth in our country gives specific requirements when it comes to individuals under the age of 26 who may have had what is commonly known as an IEP in school. And so if those individuals come into our jail under the age of 26, there are certain that we have to offer them if they were part of an IEP program or something similar during their school days. And so this document is a memorandum of understanding that the four of us agencies are committing to carrying out those responsibilities for those individuals when they're in our jail.
And just for clarification, these are for people under the age of 26.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those older than 26 are not under these guidelines. These are those kids, we call them now.
Who does the onus fall on to determine who's eligible for these? Does the inmate have to tell you that they're eligible, or do you have to research their history to find out if they've had these services?
So it's my understanding it's a bit of a combination of that. There's certain screening questions that are asked when those folks come into our services that are those questions are asked that helps determine what, where, how, when, why. And then those answers and those different screenings that are done are turned over to the ISD, who then works with the school district and us to provide any necessary services that may be needed. It's not like a blanket because some people need different, have additional needs than others. And so there is a screening that we do, and it's very scripted. So we're not setting folks up for failure in the sense of how they determine. It's a very scripted, this, and this. And then the ISD works with the school districts to determine those needs.
What's the time frame on this? Like, you have somebody who's in the jail for a drunk driving and they're there for 48 hours. I mean, is there a time parameter where if somebody's in the jail for more than a week, they have to be provided these services, or is it a month? I mean, I can't imagine it's a 48-hour thing where services need to be provided.
I will ask the sheriff to answer that question. Because it's my understanding that if you're just there for like a 24-hour
It's
hold.
typically sentenced folks.
Yes.
So they're going to be there for 30 days, for example.
Mhm.
Also keep in mind that we have a teacher
Mhm.
that comes in. And so they work with this, they're familiar with the ins and outs and the logistics of that IAP and all of that stuff too. So
So when
that's our
somebody's
connection
arrested
with
and
the,
Put in the jail, these services aren't triggered. It's usually after sentencing, after a determination has been made that they'll be
correct.
So many days.
incarcerated
so
for a
that
period of time.
Follow-up can be done with that person. Yeah.
Thanks. Sorry.
So Jeanette will make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approves the memorandum of understanding with Northwest Education Services, Benzie County Central Schools, Frankfurt, Alberta Area Schools, authorizing the chair to sign.
Marky will support.
Roll call, please.
Jeanette,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Waiseki,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. So we have scratched item K. We're gonna move on to L, which is the animal control, water, sewer.
So at the last meeting, we had approved a proposal to hook the animal control up to the village water and sewer. That proposal was the only proposal that we had at the time. With assistance with some commissioners, we were able to reach out to some other organizations in the area and get an additional proposal. And that proposal came in quite a bit lower than the proposal that we had initially. And so in the best interest of the community and our taxpayers, I would like to rescind the approval of the prior proposal from the last meeting and approve the new proposal from Kirby's Excavating. What you approved before was not to exceed 75,000. This new proposal would be 52,000. So that's what I'm asking for.
So who specifically gets the credit for that? Finding that information out.
Rhonda,
Good job, Rhonda.
We don't have a prepared motion, but I would make the motion to the effect that Katie said. Do you want me to? Does the
I
prior
said
motion need
it
to be-
eloquently.
Will this motion rescind the prior motion?
So
or do
part
you
of the
need that
motion
to
will
happen?
say to rescind the prior action of the Board of Commissioners and approve the proposal from Kirby's Excavating and the not to exceed amount of, is it 52, Bob, or 53? You have it there,
52.
52,000. With funds available in the ARPA and capital funds.
It's called Kirby's Backhoe Service.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
United Sports.
Thank you.
I do have a question. Do we know if the previous bidder actually had started or purchased things ahead of time?
Not to
So-
my knowledge, they haven't started. They had asked for the proposal and we let them know to sit tight. So not to my knowledge.
I just want to make sure we're not, I guess, causing
Correct.
cost to another agency because we are pulling the project back.
Right. Not to my knowledge. And they are doing the other element of the project too. So they'll be up there either way.
Okay.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Knapp,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, it takes care of action items. We'll move on to commissioner reports. I only had a few. One, was yesterday as very normal Veterans Affairs. We're preparing for Veterans Day upcoming. We will not have a cannon display this fall, unfortunately, but hopefully they'll be back able in the spring. We are reaching out to some local veterans to talk about and to make aware to the community the dedication and sacrifices some of these guys have made. So look forward to Veterans Day. It's a Saturday at 1 o'clock at the Veterans Memorial,
What date is that, Bob?
November 11th.
1 o'clock?
Yep, I believe the government center is closed that Friday, the 10th. At a joint meeting, Area Agency on Aging Board of Directors and Board of Advisors. Last week, there's approximately 23 people in the room. Did have a presentation from he was here a while back. Can't get it. How, in reference to housing, community housing,
Yarrow?
Yarrow.
Carl Brown.
Carol Bremer, yep. Yeah, that was just not a name I usually come up with very easy, so it was decent, well attended. And Area Agency on Aging does good things, and they're kind of like, you don't know about them unless you need them, so. So always a pretty good meeting. And that's about all. Art's filed his report.
Yeah, at the request at earlier meetings to go through it. If I could, I'll do that. And bear with me, I'm gonna go through my script and you can ask questions, but it keeps me focused. Platte Township, the township clerk complimented Tammy Bowers on the training she's providing leading up to the November election. The township's reviewing options for legal representation now that Dick Figuera's retired. They're considering using the firm Tim Figuera is moving to, and that's Micah Myers. And the township supervisor indicated that he and the clerk will attend the October 30 meeting. In Lake Township, the trustees approved a donation to Darcy Library in the amount of $1,300 to cover for the cost of replacing lighting. A job description and pay range is being developed for hiring a code enforcement officer. And again, the township supervisor indicated that they would attend the October 30 meeting. The township in Elmira is working on a potential dog park noise ordinance update and a new website. And qualifying for membership in Michigan class funds. Apparently, they had not been participating in those. The clerk acknowledged again Tammy Bowers for the training that she's providing, and the supervisor indicated that he also would attend the October 30 meeting. Some other meetings. I met with the staff of Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency to look at potential sites for Head Start beginning school year 2024. Just to remind the community, we have early Head Start in this community, but we no longer have Head Start. The reason why we don't have that is the school system chose either not to renew the contract or use the space themselves. I believe they probably have a competing program also, but I did a drive around and we're going to find another location starting next year that can be more permanent for them, because that took a number of children and households that rely on that for childcare, took them right out of the system. I've accepted an invitation to meet with Nick Nisley. He's the president of NMC. He's the one that reached out to me and others on October 19th to learn more about annexation to Grand Traverse County for the purpose of assessing a millage to subsidize tuition for Benzie County students. I've invited Commissioner Nye to join me, and I believe you are. I attended the coffee hour for Representative Coffea. Some takeaways from that was median housing costs has increased 83% since 2013. That's just absolutely incredible. You know, you don't think about it until you get that number put in your face. And I'm accepting that at face value. Some bills that are in discussion that I thought you'd like to know about here is to move the MISTA housing bond cap from 5 million to 10 million. And what this is for housing assistance. So they'd have twice the monies to be used in the state, which gets used up pretty quick, folks. I know that from my own professional experience, and that it would increase the eligibility for this program to 185 to 300% of federal poverty level, family of four. That's why I was interested in what that poverty level was earlier. And they gave me the number of 30,000, and Tim confirmed that when we were sitting here. They're working at reducing the regulations for childcare and tax credits for qualified families. I know that when I've had discussions with our elected officials, I believe that that's one of the obstacles is the regulations that are imposed. Something just as simple as fingerprinting for childcare. You can be a teacher in a classroom already fingerprinted. And at the end of the day, if you wanted to move down several classrooms to take care of children, you have to go through the same process again. Well, you know, that's government at its best, right? To create parity in mental health insurance to match healthcare insurance, and just a little explanation on that. Most of us know that our insurance carriers, we get really great coverage on health insurance, but when it comes to mental health, they treat it quite differently. And there's action in Lansing right now to try to treat both physical and mental health the same as insurance companies view it. Potential of financially assisting families, housing minor relatives, and I'm talking about the kinship program that would be similar to the foster parent assistance. Just as a little reminder, that if you have, the sheriff probably can explain this better, but if law enforcement's out at a scene and they have a social worker there and a grandparent shows up, they'll say to the grandparent, "Will you take the child?" If the grandparent agrees to, they're not getting any further financial assistance. And if they agree to, it eliminates the later opportunity to place that child differently unless there's another event. Really, really unbalanced in my opinion, especially for households that are maybe living on Social Security. And I'll be attending the October 12th Road Commission meeting at Gary Sauer's request.
Questions for Art? Commissioner Cunningham is out of town.
I just want to make a correction on behalf of Commissioner Cunningham. In her last report for September 26th, she had indicated that the chamber golf outing raised $45,000, which is absolutely not true. Michelle Barefoot emailed me a bit concerned. That event typically only generates $2,500 to $4,000 in revenue for the community chamber. So I just want to make that correction in her report that was as part of the minutes for this meeting. That event did not generate $45,000. Just letting you know.
Rhonda?
Thank you. I've attended a couple meetings. Let's start with working off my computer today, so bear with me. So the first one was Benzie Leelanau District Health Department, the health officer, Dan Thorell, he led a discussion. Commissioner Sauer reported on this in his report as well, that $750,000 of state funding is being allocated for each health department. These funds are earmarked for infrastructure and cannot be used for new buildings. The funds will need to be spent in 4 years. And our health department is initially considering getting architectural drawings for reuse of space in their buildings. The board approved a cost sharing for the Leelanau Environmental Health Office Space Agreement. They're going to be using an area in one of Leelanau's buildings, and the health department will pay for part of that renovation. The fiscal year 2024 budget was approved. Dodie Putney gave a detailed and informative fiscal presentation. It was very good, folks. She really, I think in our past conversations over the years, it's a multi-layered level of funding, and she really took the time to break it down and help explain where funds were used and where they came from. It might be a good thing for our board to see, actually. It was that impressive. So one takeaway from that presentation was that the local appropriations of $500,000, which is about the total between Benzie and Leelanau County. The portions that are used as matching brings in additional $451,000 of funding to provide local health services. So because we're general funds, we're local funds that they can use, they almost double that money. And I'm always in favor of using money to make more money. The village of Benzonia, they discussed the recommendation that was given to them by the USDA and approved the payoff of one of their water loans, and that was just under $113,000. Their new plow truck arrived, and they sold the old one to Bear Lake for $5,000. They approved a request from Steve Adams to close Travers Avenue from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Halloween for a trunk or treat event. They hired an assistant superintendent, Brady Cole. And the village was not selected for round 1 of the Eagle DWRF funding, but they did approve an intent to apply with Fleece and Vandenbrink for round 2. Village of Benzonia did qualify for overburden status, according to Eagle, for this funding. I attended the Central Wellness Executive Committee meeting. We had public hearings for procedures, 3 different procedures. The executive director's evaluation was discussed. And it was also shared that the behavioral health home may make a shift to include children in the near future. I attended the land bank meeting. The inventory was reviewed. There's going to be a special meeting on October 20th to review bids for demolition of 2 structures in Thompsonville. And this is going to enable Habitat for Humanity to build homes on those lots. Due to the median, I've discussed this before, but I wanted to bring it up again. This is regarding the blight elimination grants. Due to the median income in Benzie County, the blight elimination grant monies can only be used for renovation where income is 80% of the AMI. And they're really trying to identify projects that would qualify for this funding. There's money to be used. We just can't find places where meet all the qualifications. And information was shared, and this goes to Commissioner Janot's remark. Information was shared that the estimated median income value in Benzie County is $227,000, which is approximately 20% higher than the state median. Last night, I attended the Benzie School Board meeting. There was a presentation, SafeNet services are in every elementary school in Benzie County. Lake Ann Elementary Prevention Specialist, Mark Green, attended and gave a lengthy presentation about the services he provides. There was a drawing of a 3-bay bus garage to be built that was shared. They approved the renewal of the sinking fund DD. They have that in a CD and it's generating income because of where the interest rates are at right now. BWAC has approved, hold on, just. I used to working off a computer here when I'm giving that. Okay. BWAC is there and they have improved their offer to purchase Crystal Lake Elementary. They started at 250,000. They have upped their offer to 425,000. The attorneys for both entities are still negotiating terms, including the purchase price, indemnification, and time parameters. So they have not come to a meeting of minds yet. The audit deadline is November 1st and the school anticipates it will be on time this year. And I also attended a sewer feasibility study meeting. I will be giving an update on where the sewer feasibility study stands at our next meeting. After Wade Trim provides us with verbiage for an announcement they have to make. That's all I have.
Questions? And just for clarification, Rhonda, that 425,000, that was for Crystal Lake Elementary?
Correct.
And that was for that
Benzie Wellness and Aquatic.
aquatic center.
And you have to remember, the school did pay for an appraisal of Crystal Lake Elementary, and this was, and I'm gonna guess it was a couple of years ago, but they're relying on this appraisal that they received that put the value of that building and the property underneath it in the high 500s to low 600,000 range.
I'm really questioning the value. I'm trying to reconcile how Road Commission bought Platte River Elementary for $1 and this is selling for nearly $500,000.
Okay, should do with value and cost to get the property ready.
I understand.
Yep. Any other questions? Tim?
I attended the Central Wellness Network Community Service and Relations Committee meeting. On that meeting, we reviewed our normal reports that we get, the quality snapshot, quality measures, the NMRE, critical incident reporting, and the jail services. The jail services is going to start looking a little different. Their main clinician that does that is on maternity leave, and they don't have a dedicated person to fill her spot, but they're taking a team approach to make sure that services are not lessened up at all. And they reviewed the results of the SafeNet survey, SafeNet, kind of what the presentation at the school had. In May of 2023, surveys were sent out to staff and parents and guardians of the children who received SafeNet services through the 2022-2023 school year. Overall, the satisfaction percentage was like 95% from the parent and guardians and 92% from the staff. So overall, SafeNet is viewed as very positive from the people who received the services. And then we also got a health home effectiveness review. Basically, Central Wellness has these health homes, behavioral health home, opioid health home. Basically, kind of like sheds a light on what they've done since 2014 through 2023. And I'm going to suggest that they share those reports with this board, or, I mean, I kind of gave them one this morning to Rhonda. Okay. The Village of Honor Council meeting, Julie Bessinger is updating her efforts on restarting the village's farmers market. So we're gonna have another farmers market in the area. Hopefully, I think they're planning on starting up in the spring. And the village decided to use their ARPA funds on the village park. They're looking to add playground equipment. That's all I got.
And that park is located.
They're gonna be using, it's like a triangle wedge piece of land across from the plaza.
Any other questions for Tim? Evan?
Thanks. I only had the solid waste advisory meeting. And Jesse reported on last year's totals for the household hazardous waste. There was 29,000 pounds collected at the two collections. For electronics, there was over 18,000 pounds. And then on the tire collections, there was over 69,000 pounds of tires, which was the equivalent to like 3,100 tires and 9 mattresses. And the dates for next year's events will be June 8th in Frankfurt, and that'll be for the household hazardous waste and tires. July 13th in Thompsonville will be tire only. And then August 27th at the Road Commission will be the household hazardous waste and tires. And there's still no cardboard trailers at their normal sites. No real update on those. They're still, Jesse's still hoping to get those back up once that company gets them repaired, but he's not hopeful. So that's it.
Questions for Evan?
If I could, before we leave this commissioner report, in the last 2 weeks, there was an article in the Record Eagle that talked about a reorganization at Munson Hospital. It looked like it was going to affect Paul Oliver Memorial in terms of the services being delivered. I thought there might be some benefit for us to reach out to the hospital and,
Already did.
okay, can you tell me what the outcome of that was?
They are going to have 2 individuals come to one of our next 3 meetings to present and answer any questions that the board may have regarding their future plans. So Christy Johnson and another person are planning to come. We're just working on which of the next 3 meetings.
Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, that's an important service in our community, makes us more competitive, and we need to stay dialed in with them.
Yep. They will be present soon.
All righty. Move on to county administrator's report.
All right, I have a lot of stuff this time. So MAC and MERS, I went to those 2 conferences recently. The MERS conference was a great conference. I haven't been to Detroit in 20 years. It was kind of fun to go. So I've never been to a MERS conference, and I don't know who of you have went, but the MERS conference, they have some presentations that are meant for everybody, but then they really break off to employer presentations and employee presentations. So Karen Mallon would have went to some different presentations than I did because she's an employee. From the employer side of it, they went over a lot of things about the services that MERS offers to the various employers as far as additional different retirements and health savings account strategies. We went over those different things. Many of them from a Benzie County standpoint don't make sense based on our employee population and what we already offer, and trying to tie those things in. They don't really make sense. We went over the actuarial reports and how to read those actuarial reports. And they went over with us how to balance certain numbers that are within the reports in addition to the quarterly and annual statements. And then they talked about the smoothing and how the smoothing is factored into those numbers. Most of it, from my opinion, was very sales pitchy for the employer side of it. It was good information. The actuarial class was good information. Most of the rest of it was very sales pitchy to me. For what it's worth, the employees, Karen got a lot out of it because they really go into some details from employee side as to what your investments means and, you know, the future of what it's going to look like when you retire. So for her purposes, I know she enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. From my side of it, good, but sales pitchy. The MAC conference, which was shortly thereafter, was really great. I went with both Commissioner Cunningham and Commissioner Sauer down there. A lot of great classes that we went over. I sat in with Bonnie Toski to go over collective bargaining. That was great. We talked about a lot of strategies from the county side as to how to approach collective bargaining and, you know, work across the table. We also had a great presentation on cybersecurity and about the different enhancements that we need to make to really protect ourselves and protect the information that we have from an IT standpoint. The company that was presenting is one of the companies that's giving me a proposal that we can consider as we look forward to IT services and how we're handling that with Benzie County. But that was a great presentation. They even went through a mock cyber attack, and it took 7 minutes for a hacker to completely shut down the county system. 7 minutes is all it takes. We want to protect from that as the best as we can. We are doing some things now because there's certain firewalls and different things that we have to have in place from a law enforcement standpoint as well as a court standpoint, but there's more that could be done. And so my office is exploring different agencies outside of the current one that we have, VC3, and trying to enhance some of those services, because the last thing I want is for us to be dead in the water and to have everybody's birth certificates and marriage licenses spread all over the world with private information. So we will be moving in that direction. Some of the other things that we talked about at MAC was a lot about what's happening at the state level. Many of you probably are getting these in your newsletters, but there's some pretty big things that are happening at the state level. One of them is that right now in Lansing, they're talking about minimum staffing for all public safety. That could be an issue for not only us, but any county, because they would mandate the staffing levels for police officers, corrections officers, any sort of law enforcement first responder. Maybe we're in good shape, but maybe we're not. So that is coming down the pike. So if you want to reach out to Lansing and express your concerns with that, I would highly recommend that. Another thing that we talked about is it's very apparent at the state level that cities are very important, cities and villages, and counties are kind of being left out of the mix on a lot of things. You see a lot of things coming out of Lansing that really enhance cities, townships, and villages much more than the counties from funding standpoints and programs coming out. So one of the calls to action that was given to us was to really make Lansing understand how important counties are and the roles that counties play in our state. So if you're having those conversations with our representatives, make sure they understand that the counties play a very important role when it comes to local government and managing our communities. Another thing that we talked about was countywide zoning. So solar and wind energy is a hot topic all over the state of Michigan because of the different goals that are put in place by our legislature. It is my understanding that there is a good chance that for those counties who do not have a zoning ordinance in place that addresses solar and wind and renewable energy, that the state of Michigan is like this with sewer, and they're trying to put out like a statewide ordinance. And so kind of like what we're dealing with the health department and they're with the point of sale, and that's, they're trying to shove that also down the road when it comes to renewable energy. So we may, as a county, need to talk about that and maybe how we want to handle that, because just like the other topic, one size doesn't fit all. And where do you think they want to put all of the solar and wind energy? Northern Michigan. And so I don't want to be left unprepared. So we need to talk about how we want to handle that. I'm not saying I don't want them here, but if we want them here, we should have a say in where and how and what. So we're going to want to watch that at the state level and talk about that, because I don't think a statewide ordinance is going to benefit Benzie County very well. And so we may want to consider some sort of county ordinance or working with the townships to come up with ordinances, because what they're saying is if you have nothing, then they're going to slap one on you. Whereas if you have something in line, and this is what's being proposed, if you already have something on the books, you can keep up with that, and everyone who doesn't have something on the books gets the state ordinance. So we may want to consider looking towards an ordinance. Let's see here. MAC is going to be revamping a survey that they did back in 2003, and it's the mandated services survey. So they're going to put out a survey to talk about mandated and non-mandated services for counties and what services counties are actually providing to the communities, kind of that educational piece to Lansing to show them how important counties are. Some other great news, and you all received the email yesterday, but for the public's benefit, the county is the recipient of $400,000 in the Spark grant to pave a portion of the Betsy Valley Trail. You back this summer approved that application, and we are award recipients of that $400,000. So that's very, very exciting for Benzie County. Rose in my office has been working to get some proposals for some different upgrades and maintenance issues here at the building. We've talked about for a long time, additional lighting in the parking lot, new signage here at the governmental center, as well as fixing some of the concrete areas around the campus. And so Rose is working on that. And she will be scheduling a Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting to talk about the proposals that we have so we can make some of those upgrades to our campus. Most of you should have gotten the email, but in case you didn't, Senator Bumstead has reserved room 206 on October 30th at 10 a.m. And he reserved that for the purpose of sitting down with them and chatting about issues. So anyone around this horseshoe is welcome to attend that. It's pretty informal. He wants it to be pretty informal. It's just kind of a sit down and chat and get to know you, get to know the county and, you know, what we're trying to do and where we want to go. So October
was that?
30th at 10 a.m. in room 206. He's earmarked about an hour and a half, 2 hours of his time for that. We will have auditors here later this week. They are starting the auditing of our last fiscal year, so they'll be primarily in Shelley's office and my office to get documents and ask questions of us. So our audit is getting started very soon. I also want to invite folks around this horseshoe to the kickoff of the Digital Equity Compass Task Force. So you'll recall a month and a half ago, I talked about working with Merit to move forward on a Digital Equity Compass Task Force to really develop those needs and programs and paperwork, all those things to address digital equity as part of our internet money award that we're getting. And so Wednesday on the 18th at 2 p.m. at Grow Benzie, we're having a kickoff meeting in person to talk about what this task force could do, where we want it to go, the timeline, and how we're going to address digital equity in Benzie County now and into the future. And then the last one, materials management plan. When Jesse was here, it was asked about working regionally. And at that point, we had said that the counties around us didn't really want to work with us. And so I called up my friend Nate Elger and I said, well, what the heck? And so next Thursday, Jesse and I will be sitting down with Grand Traverse and Leelanau to talk about ways we can work together on a regional materials management plan versus Benzie having to go at it alone. So Jesse and I will be in Leelanau County next Thursday morning for that. That's all I have on my list. Is there any questions?
What time on the 18th is that digital equity?
2 p.m. at Grow Benzie,
So you know, we're scheduled for an EDC from 12:30 to 2.
12:30, yes, to 1:30 is,
30.
that's, yes.
We have two questions. So the Spark Grant news for the Bessie Valley Trail, that, if I remember correctly, that was a phased project.
Correct.
3 phases. The first one was to pave to Case Road,
Correct.
and then it was repair of culverts,
Mhm.
and then into Thompsonville.
That's correct.
So this initial grant, will that cover the paving to Case Road?
Correct. Yep.
Phase 1, okay.
Yes, please.
Your MERS conference. The biggest question I would have had and did have when they were here the last time is about the concept of additional MERS. Now, when they were here the last time, if I remember correctly, we were told as a body that in under 20 years, I believe it was 18,
Right.
18 years, making the payments that are prescribed, we would be fully funded. Everybody remember that the same way?
Yep.
So the concept of making additional payments, I don't remember a succinct answer when I said on the graphs that they provided saying, okay, I remember we threw an additional 80,000 at this here on this graph and, you know, there were extra monies here and it wasn't reflected anywhere. So was any light gleaned on that about these entities who make extra payments? Did they talk about that at all?
A little bit. So, because there's various communities who make those extra payments. And somebody did ask that, you know, where are my extra payments going? And the response was that when those extra payments are being made, unless you specifically say you want it to go like on the principal per se, then it's just thrown in there and you won't necessarily see the extra payment. When you no, I'm not kidding you. When you make the extra payment, they want you to specifically say where it's going. So for instance, we have multiple divisions and we have some divisions that are almost fully funded. and then some divisions that are a bit low, and they take the average and that's what they give us. So if we wanted to make an extra payment to fully fund one of those divisions that only needs, 3% more to fully fund it, I would have to make that payment and specifically say to allocate that money to that for it to show in the overall average. Yeah. Yeah. And so, of course, they want you to make extra payments. They want more money. They want you to make extra payments. Them saying that we're going to be paid off in so many years is specifically based on that information that was in front of you. If we have a really bad year in the market and we drop, say, 10%, and now we're 60% funded versus 70, that 18-year timeline is now moved. You got to start over. That timeline that they're giving you is based on the information at hand.
Well, would that warrant having them come in annually and giving us updates?
We absolutely could have Tony come in annually. Yes, but yeah, so that's the information given to you at that time is how they determine that. But it's always changing, and that's what they'll continue to tell you is it's always changing because it's based on the market and the investments. That's why they apply the smoothing factor to help try to level that out a little bit, so that if there's a bad year in the market, our payment doesn't go from 100,000 a month to 180,000 a month. It levels out and goes from 100 to 106 or something like that. So that's why that smoothing factor is put in there. They also talked about how they're looking at additional investment options to help with the changes in the market, to help level things out and improve the investment of MERS. They indicated that they're looking at China and the Asia continental area and investing there because that's considered a hot investment in the up and coming years. So they're making additional investments and buying more territory to invest to improve the investment strategy. I learned these things.
Shocking.
Yes. It was a bit like you could see in the room, because this is just administrators mostly. There was a few employees who snuck in. But you could see when they talked about those things, because it's very frustrating to a lot of counties because, they're given this information, you're given your mortgage information and, you're going to pay it off in 2037. And when it comes to this MERS investing, it's not quite that cut and dry is how they explained it because of the markets, because of the investments, because of how long people are living and when people are retiring. There's all these factors. And so that's how they portray it to you. Well, there's all these factors, so things change.
Sounds like a pyramid scheme to me.
There was a heavy sigh in the room. I'm not kidding you.
Thing you have to worry about with MERS and their forecast is that you can get the numbers to say a lot of things, but more importantly, they're going to be conservative.
Absolutely.
And so they're not, in my opinion, not always working in the best interest of the investor, meaning ourselves.
Mhm.
And I also have some concerns about where they may consider reinvesting our money. But that's for another discussion.
Correct.
To your point, Rhonda, they used to come in and give us a presentation. When's the last time they did that?
I think it was maybe close to 18 months ago now when Tony was here last.
But
Because
they used
Christine
to
was
come
here.
in, and that's the right thing to do. I mean, that's a big responsibility that this group has right here
Yeah.
of that fund.
Christine was still here when they came last. So it's been a while because you've been here almost a year now, right? Yeah. So.
What I would encourage is that no county overreact based on the numbers that MERS is giving them, because they can change in a 6-month window.
Absolutely.
And you've adjusted your payments based on numbers that are more conservative to them.
Mhm.
That's kind of the issue I've had with MERS from the beginning.
Well, and in my conversation with various counties, I can tell you not many counties make additional payments. They're just keeping the status quo. So, and that really surprised me. I would have thought, counties are trying to become funded and just be done with it. And not as many as you'd think are making additional payments. The bonding issue came up. There's been quite a few counties and municipalities who have bonded their liability. But unless you fully close the plan, which means everybody who is retired has passed, there's no new people, that's fully closing the plan. Unless you're bonding a fully closed plan, you could bond to put yourself at 100% and the next year be back to 50, potentially. And the opportunity for bonding is actually sunsetting, I'm being told, in 2025. we wouldn't have the ability to bond if you chose to.
So the communities that have chosen to go to fully fund it, they kind of wear that as a badge of honor,
Right.
in my opinion. It's, as I remember in my past life, stay in compliance, don't over comply.
Mhm.
So if you have to be at 60% or greater, just make sure that's where you're at. If their numbers come back and it puts that number in jeopardy, you need to question them about it. Because literally in a 24-hour period, they can put you underwater. And
Well,
that's simply because they're protecting
Yeah,
their reputation.
correct. So those,
We have not had a default in meeting our retirement obligations.
no, we have not.
And I don't know if anybody in the state of Michigan in the last 10 years has,
Maybe Detroit.
not in the last 10 years.
Maybe not in the last 10 years, but yeah, so those communities who wear that badge of honor, they bond fully funded. They're only fully funded for maybe a year unless they're fully closed plans. So you can only wear that badge of honor for a short period of time. So bonding is kind of it's worst case scenario, you bond.
Bob, I've got a couple of questions for, her, if I could. In no particular order. As I was listening to your report, you touched on IT support a little bit. There was a time that I remember, now that IT Right has been acquired by somebody else,
DC3.
there's been some discontent with their service. Are we still either trying to improve that service or are we looking for somebody different?
Both. I meet with Steve, who is our account person with VC3. I meet with him weekly to go over issues. Rose is working with him right now on issues on licensing for Microsoft. We're constantly talking about the concerns and the improvements that need to be made. We're also exploring other options. I sat down with Dodie to talk about maybe sharing an IT person that's hired. And we both agree it just wouldn't work to have that partnership because we have so many different vendors and requirements that one person, they couldn't realistically manage it. So I have said to VC3, that's who acquired IT Right, not only do we need these improvements, I said to them, I need a new proposal from you. We have to start from scratch. And I've let them know I'm getting other bids as well, other proposals as well to manage IT services. They're well aware of that. I'm waiting on a proposal from them. I'm also waiting on 2 additional proposals from other companies because it's just not improving. I mean, Tom King put in a ticket to fix something a week ago, and he still hasn't even been scheduled for the fix.
So 2 observations. One is they should be telling you what we should be doing, not us having to go to them what improvements need to be made.
Yes.
That's problematic. And if you were trying to have somebody on staff for it, they would just simply be a coordinator. They would still need
Yes.
outside help.
Correct. So either way, and that's how it's managed at at the health department, for instance, they still have Wyant. And they're looking at having somebody on site. Most organizations contract with somebody, but then have like a coordinator on site. Manistee County, for instance, many people know Gordon. Gordon was a contracted employee with Manistee for 22 years. They finally made him an actual staff person because they've had him forever. They still contract out with a third party to manage that big stuff, but Gordon is their day-to-day person who does the majority of the heavy lifting. And then those other folks on the outside, they manage the servers and the firewalls and those sorts of things. So Manistee County is going to send me their kind of model and relationship that they have for their services as well.
Also, I think the advantage is they have a deeper bench. If we have one person and they're out, whether they're ill or whatever it might be, we're kind of
Yes.
dead in the water.
Correct.
Moving on to the next subject. A while back, this board had authorized a jail audit.
Mhm.
Can you give us an update on that?
I just reached out to the undersheriff while I was at the MAC conference, and he hadn't received anything back yet on that. I don't know if in the last week we've received anything, but when I was at the MAC conference, the undersheriff had indicated he hadn't received that back yet.
Looks like there's some more information.
You're referring to the staff analysis?
Yes, sir.
That is happening October 19th, 20th, or 21st.
Okay. So it's happening this month now.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
The question on renewable energies and having a policy at the county level. Of course, in 2010, we forfeited all of our rights to that.
Correct.
Would each township, if each township had an ordinance on it, would that be a qualifying event based on what you heard? Or does it have to be at the county level?
It doesn't have to be at the county level. But the issue that they're having in Lansing and why they're now trying to push this universal policy or ordinance is that because there's so many individual ordinances and they all have every different rules and priorities, renewable energy companies and the lobbyists are saying, well, it's too hard to work with, make it easier for us. So that's why they're pushing. So that's why Mac suggested a countywide ordinance or policy, because that decreases the amount of rules and regulations so that then the renewable energy companies aren't pushing so hard for a statewide policy to make it easy.
Yeah, I get it. Of course, these are township decisions.
Yes.
And it's too bad that it's difficult for them to navigate it, but I hope whatever we can do, I think, in order to make sure that their ordinances are ones that are followed.
Yes.
You know, of course, they're different.
Well, yeah, as they should
That's the whole
be.
point.
So I would encourage you to reach out to your contacts and just express the displeasure of a statewide ordinance for that, because the ordinance that fits one community does not fit our community, just like the issues that we're dealing with sewer. Benzie County is very different than Washtenaw County and Wayne County, even Newaygo County. And so please express that displeasure, because they're all saying it. It's all going to Northern Michigan and the UP. And I'm sorry,
I'm sure you'll bring Commissioner Sauer up to speed when it's appropriate, because it's his townships that will be.
well, and he was at MAC with me and we sat through that together. Yeah. So
It could be that that's something that we bring up to Bumstead
yes,
when he's here on the
absolutely.
30th. And having said that, you talked about this group attending that meeting, but that's open to the public, right?
Yep. And that's not necessarily a meeting. It's kind of just a come and chat with him and, take
Coffee
15
hour.
minutes of the time and then leave, kind of like the coffee hours that Representative Kofia does. He's just doing it in our building.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the group knew that they were
Yep.
invited to that also. Moving along, that $400,000 for Betsy Valley Trail, will that then complete the paving from Beulah to Thompsonville?
No, to Case Road.
Oh, just to Case Road?
Yep. So it'll be from the trailhead to Case Road. And then the next phase is some underground issues when it comes to the culverts and such. And then the third phase would be to complete the paving to Thompsonville.
Okay. You were talking about you and some of your staff going around and identifying some building structure needs. Doesn't that fit into the capital plan that we look at?
Some of it, yes. So sign replacement and new signs is on the capital plan. Lighting's on the capital plan. All these items are on your capital plan.
I thought I heard you say something about maybe some structural integrity issues with concrete or something. Did I misunderstand that?
Yes, and that's on your plan as well. So what I'm talking about is the sidewalks, the stairs coming into this building, the stairs that go up to the sheriff's office, as well as extending the sidewalk. So typically where I park in the corner of the parking lot, extending that sidewalk down to the sidewalk that runs along the road,
Sure.
because every day between the staff and our community residents, they're traipsing through the yard. They're walking in the driveway and it's just a safety issue. And so I'd like to extend that sidewalk down so that they have a path.
Understand that, but
Mhm.
we've started to grow a nice discipline towards this capital plan.
Mhm.
And I want to make sure that we stay disciplined,
Yeah.
because it's not just for this group here, it's for people that follow in behind us.
Yep.
So that they know what needs to be done also for management.
Yep. All those things are on the plan. And then we're constantly thinking about what else needs to be on the plan. While I was at MAC, I communicated with a few different roof vendors because, here in the region, we pretty much only use Bloxham and there's not a whole lot of other agencies around. And so I communicated with some other roof vendors about a roof evaluation of our building, elevators. We've been working on elevator maintenance. Maybe it's not news to you, but the state of Michigan has changed a lot of its code for elevators. And by 2028, we're going to need an entire new elevator to the tune of like $400,000.
And we need to be anticipating those needs.
Yep.
All right, listen, for the way I feel like I'm walking today, if you could put in like a movable sidewalk that brings me.
Absolutely. what do they call those, fast walkers?
Escalator.
Yeah.
No, the
escalator.
escalators go up and down. It's people movers.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could just have my wish list.
I can do that, yeah.
Last item. Did I hear you say that you're gonna work with surrounding communities, talk about regional purchasing?
No, regional materials management plan.
What does that mean?
So management.
So the solid
Oh,
waste management
solid
plan,
waste.
yeah. So originally Jesse had reached out to the fellow folks that are in his roles in those other communities and they said, no, no, no. So I went to the administrators and I said, and so now we're working together,
Okay, thanks for indulging me there, Mr.
of
Chairman.
course.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Katie? Have study session minutes? Apparently not. Committee appointments, we did take care of Mr. Bailey. Was there any more?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Unfinished business? New business? Correspondence for your afternoon reading. Brings us to our final public input.
Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to introduce Victor Moore, Deputy Corrections. He's one of our latest hires. And he's been sitting through the meeting. This is part of his training.
Oh, perfect.
that I designated.
So is he quitting
today.
now?
Yeah, so now I think he's figured out one thing he doesn't want to do.
Right.
Moving forward, but
Welcome.
Congratulations.
It's nice to meet you. Be safe.
thank you.
Good to see
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sheriff. Judge?
Vouched for me. When I did a preliminary examination a few weeks ago that the media, I got a call the next morning from an attorney saying, is it legal for Wally Armstrong to be doing preliminary examinations? No. And why'd you have him do it? What are you talking about? They're like, have you read today's Record Eagle? No.
Why would?
Apparently they got confused by the term magistrate. For preliminary examination, that term and judge are hand in hand. So they named Wally as and quoted him several times.
Oh.
So I'm not neglecting my duties. Secondly, as most of you know, Jared Henry took over as probate judge down in Manistee County. Good selection by the governor. I don't have any heartburn with it. Except that I came to the quick realization, we don't have private practice attorneys anymore. In Manistee County, Jane Johnson was the private practice attorney in Onekama. She's in the public defender's office now. John Brockero was private practice. He's in the prosecutor's office now. Hillary Erickson left the state. She's off in California, so Bear Lake has no private practice attorneys. Wilson Saylor sold out to Mika Myers. And Judge Thompson stole their only associate down in Manistee County, so they really don't have a footprint in Manistee anymore. Some of these older attorneys pop up every now and then, but most of them are retired. For all intents and purposes, you have 3 private practice attorneys in Manistee that do retainers. One of those private practice attorneys is Judge Henry's stepfather. Well, when you only have pretty much 3 retained attorneys, I'm getting 30% of the cases. Clayton is the referee is getting a bunch of the family division cases down there. In the way it's playing out right now, best case scenario, I'm not gonna be available to Benzie County at least one day a week. I'm sorry, yeah. No, once every 2 weeks. However, it's starting to play out that I'm gonna be down there potentially one day a week. So I'm not disappearing on Benzie County, but I need the board to be aware. All of a sudden, I've got a bunch of Manistee County duties, so it is what it is, and I think I'll be retired before Mark Quinn is, so I'll continue to have to cover for Judge Hatter.
Thanks, Judge. Yep. Any other public input? Close public input, look for a motion to adjourn.
Do we want to, this afternoon is 2 hours away from the afternoon meeting. Do we want to move that up so we're not wasting 2 hours before our next study session?
Guess I'd ask the clerk. What's her schedule?
It can make it work either way.
I can go either way with it.
How
As long as we
long is
can have a
the
break.
one this afternoon? Doesn't look to be long, but
Here, let me
this
look.
morning we were moving right along really fast too, though.
Up to you guys.
What's the consensus of the board?
I mean, 2 hours to me seems
I
like
agree.
a long time, a waste of time when we could condense and maybe if people gotta go eat, take a half hour, we'll meet back here at noon.
I'm fine. with it. You take more than I have. huh? I
How
don't
about
care.
for the administrator?
Doesn't matter to me.
I'd be in support of taking a 15-minute break and moving on, but
I'm
If you send us away for a half hour, that's dangerous.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's take a 15-minute break. We'll be back to enter into the study session.
we need that in the form of a motion or no? I don't know, Bob. I'm just guessing.
Done one
No.
before.
Okay.
So
So for the public's benefit,